Well, all right. So, Bambu Labs has been coming out with a bunch of teasers, about the big September 20th release, the big secret, right? And they've put it out. What is it? The colorful 3D printing for everyone. They have it on their webpage. You can find it on Facebook and different media outlets, and they follow it up with a tweet. It's the active motor noise canceling tweet, and then they followed up with another tweet after that with the rethink flow dynamics calibration. So they're giving a lot of teasers. Plus, we know that Bambu Lab trademarked the Bambu Lab A1. So we know there's something up, right? That was a big clue. But there's still a lot of speculation on what is it actually going to be, right? And we have about 8 days from the time that I'm filming this anyway. We have about 8 days before the 20th. And so by the time you see this video, it might be, a week or less before it comes out. Well, here's my 2 cents worth. And before we get started, remember to check out our website. We have a growing number of products, services, and even some pretty cool t-shirts. So, well, let's get started. So, looking at the image, up at the top here, you see the different filament strands. It looks like about 4 of them that are being fed into what looks like an extruder. Now, the input here, it looks like it's squared off, right? It doesn't look round. It looks more rectangular, giving all the shadows and whatnot. But I guess the big question is it square or rectangular? How deep does that go? And that kind of tells you, is it going to be a 2 or 4 inputs, right? Is it going to be 2 in a square format, or is it just going to be 2 inputs there? Yeah, who knows? And you can see on the side, this definitely looks like a filament slicer, similar to what is on the X1 and the P1 series. So this has got to be some kind of extruder assembly or whatnot. The mounting holes you see at the top are those 2 mounting holes to go on a different gantry or something? Or, well, I guess it could be both, because it kind of looks like the size of a stepper motor, doesn't it? And here on the front, that little button or whatever, I have no idea. It could be some kind of a visual indicator to let you know what color of filament is being fed. But when you look at it, it kind of only looks like it tracks 3 feeds or something. So this being some kind of a multi-filament extruder, I mean, it makes all kinds of sense, right? Because right now, the only option with Bambu Lab is that you have to buy that whole AMS setup. It's that or nothing, right? So now they have, or could have, an extruder with a multi-filament input and multiple color capabilities without having to buy the AMS, right? But I guess the big question is, looking at the unit and the size of that extruder, it looks like it fits, like it'll have one stepper motor there. It'll have, a single gear. When it starts pushing filament down, it's like, well, how is it going to manage those 4 strands, the 4 filaments coming in? It's got to be pushed in from somewhere, right? So what's going to be driving each one and separating each one? That's the big question I have about it. So if this is a colorful printing for everyone, what is it going to fit on? Surely they're not just going to have a standalone product that's going to fit other printers, that you can swap out the extruders and all that stuff. I can't see that. I mean, Bambu Lab's into putting out full products, full printers, not just accessories, right? The accessories go along after they have released a full platform. Yeah, and plus they have the Bambu Lab A1 trademark, so I doubt if it's just going to be a standalone product like that. Is this going to be, all this stuff coming out, is it going to be a part of a new platform? And I'm thinking it could be, instead of the Core XY, I think maybe this could be start of a bed slinger that they're going to come out with. Because if you think about it, if they're talking about active noise canceling, that's going to be a necessity with a bed slinger, right? Yeah, so the X1 and the P1 series printers are by no means silent, right? So if you look at that tweet, Bambu's hinting at a 48 dB level, right? So that's significantly quieter if you compare the dB levels from the X1 being closed, encased, and then look at the dB level when it's open. Yeah, you can see it's not too quiet, and even I think some of my Ender 3s that I converted over in the past have been much quieter, and that's with stock fans, stock motors. All I did was change the main board out to a 30-bit, 32-bit board, and the Ender 3s are fairly quiet, right? But now the flow dynamics icon here, it doesn't give you a whole lot of, not a whole lot of clues here, right? Because looking at it, it looks like the current manual calibration, right, where it just puts out the lines like that, and so maybe they're hinting that it's going to be at a different scale, or the range of increments. I mean, maybe instead of going from, you see here, it's going from a 0.005 increments, right? So what I'd like to see is, you go that way, and then you choose a range, and then you calibrate at a 0.001 increments. Once you're within that range, then you can pinpoint what you need. But that one, you just have to wait and see, right? So if you look at this from a product management or product portfolio management point of view, well, Bambu Labs, they have a few options, right? And one of them could be going with the larger build platform, say with having the same platform as the X1 in the P1 series, but with a larger build volume. And there's been a lot of guys that want this. I mean, including myself. If I could get my hands on one of those, that would be great. But is that just a niche market, right? Because I know I had a Creality, what is it, the CR10, and I used to have it because the 300 by 300 by 350 or 400, whatever that build plate was, and I really didn't use it that much, for what I print off. And when I sold it, I really haven't missed it that much. So, although I would love to have the larger build volume on an X1 carbon, it's like, well, is it a necessity? No. And if they do offer, that larger, the XL version, XL, just my little term there, it's I think a lot of guys would probably hold off getting an X1 or a P1 and get the larger version. So you're kind of they'd be robbing themselves. They'll be competing against themselves, right? And where a customer is going to wait and buy another version instead of buying what they have now. And that's kind of what happened with the P1 series, right? When the P1P came out, and I did the same thing. You see behind me here, I bought a P1P for the lower price point and was happy with it, and then did the conversion up to the P1S. So in that case, yeah, between the P1 series and the X1 series, they're still competing against each other almost. It's just like coming out with different, like a automobile company coming out with different cars, and they end up competing against themselves over what the customer wants. But they could also go towards a lower price point, right? Or a different, like say the bed slinger. If it's a lower cost and a different kind of printer, they won't really be robbing, competing against themselves as far as, the Core XY stuff. So coming out with a bed slinger, it does make a lot of sense, right? It could be at a lower cost, and that secret extruder, that would fit on there. And so somebody could have a multi-filament, multi-color options on a bed slinger, which doesn't exist right now, right? And if they do that, the noise canceling stuff would be a necessity on a bed slinger, and then of course you have to calibrate everything, right? So it might be something a little different. Market wise, if they come out with a bed slinger, I'm sure it's not going to be like going after a Creality, which came out with their latest Ender 3 is like $200. That's probably not the market they're going for. If they come out with a bed slinger, it's going to be trying to go head to head with Prusa, right? They want a good quality, reliable printer, fast, and with features that you can't find on any other bed slinger, right? So if they came out with a bed slinger, like looking at the price points, say, because with the X1 Carbon, you're looking at what, $1,500 with the AMS. If you're a P1P, would be, what are they, 600 now? And the P1S would be 700 with an AMS would be 1,000. So if you're looking at $600 for the P1P, well, if they came out with a bed slinger version with the multi-filament capabilities already in it, and come out with that with 700 or so, somewhere floating around there, even up to 800, that would still be lower than a Prusa, but then you'd have a bed slinger with the multicolor, multi-filament stuff. That right now you can really only have that for $1,000, right? So there's the price points. And I guess it all matters when you start crunching the numbers and looking at what market you're going for. What would have the biggest demand? And in my opinion, they'd probably make a lot more sales if they came out with the bed slinger or something at that point, at that price point, rather than it's either that or going for the larger X1, which would be fantastic, but I think it's a smaller market. So I guess you got to look at it that way also, and I'm sure they've crunched the numbers. Plus, Bambu Lab has been building their own ecosystem, right? And gaining a huge following. And you can tell, even, especially like in some of the forums, it cracks me up. Like, if you make a negative remark or somebody's asking to do something that, well, why can't it do this, or what, something's wrong with that, and there's so many guys that'll chime in, the fanboys, I guess you'd call them, and they come in and, well, it's better than this, and you're stupid, blah blah blah. They just come out in defense of Bambu Lab before you even know what the problem is, and and it cracks me up. And some of these guys, they have a legitimate question. It might be their very first printer, and they have a legitimate question to go to a forum in, and if they ask a question, these guys just browbeat them to death. And it's kind of stupid. But if you look way back, even in the early Apple days, right, there were guys that, they get in the Apple ecosystem and they use nothing but Apple. and they're so defensive about it. If somebody says, well, why don't you use this instead and do this and that and that, and they just, nah, blah, they just. But I guess that's what it kind of reminds me of. But think about it, has that been a good a good move? Apple's one of the biggest companies in the world now, but we'll wait and see what happens. So, and of course, if you think about their ecosystem, even if they do come out with a bed slinger, it's going to be it's still going to be in part of that ecosystem. I'm sure you're going to have to use Bambu Studio still, and they'll push to go through their cloud system and all that good stuff. So they're going to be entrenched. So I am predicting that the new Bambu Lab A1, which has been trademarked, is going to be a new line of bed slinger platforms, and it'll have a multi-feed extruder, right? I think it'll probably have the same bed that's used on the P1, the same heated bed, same size that you'll see on the X1 and P1 series. It could have the same board, the main board, and probably same board. It could have a camera on it. And I guess the big question is it going to be quieter? And the calibration, is it going to be more automated, or is it going to be manual, kind of like we're doing now? They kind of shifted over to that, didn't they? Where it's not as automated as it was before. But they're calling it automated. But to me, there's still it's a cross. There's still a lot of manual calibration going on. I think the target market, like I said, is going to be the Prusa users and the higher end market, and I guess a lot of the clones too that are out there. There's some that are high end, but nothing like Prusa. Prusa has a big following, so I think they're going to try to hit that market. Because after all, they even came out with their version of printables, right? So it looks like they're really going after what Prusa has, and they're trying to get some of that market share. So after this series, after the A1 comes out, maybe I hope they try to tackle the larger build volume. That would still be great to have, and I would love to have one myself, but we'll have to wait and see. So, well, I guess that is it for this video. So I guess we'll see when September 20th rolls out, and we'll see what happens. So no gambling, please, but we'll see what the Vegas odds are, right? But anyway, so I guess that's it for this video. So once again, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and watch for my next video.